to the flag and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I do want to remind everyone that the meeting is being live streamed. We have one council member, Angela Cuthbert, who couldn't be here, but we do have council member Mike Nicholas on the line, so he is with us. First item of business is approval of the June 23rd, 2026 council meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for June 23rd, 2026.
Second that.
Thank you.
All right, Joe, Mike?
No
Any
discussion.
questions? Comments? Okay. All right. All those in favor of approving the June 23rd, 2026 council meeting minutes as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Opposed? All right. We're good there. First up then is citizens' requests or comments. As a reminder, come up to the microphone, state your name and your address for the record.
Council President and council members, my name is David Haverstick. I live at 136 Oak Knoll Circle here in Millersville. My remarks are about last week's hearing, and they're brief remarks. There appears to be a nasty undercurrent among many of Millersville's residents since the hearing. So I would like each of you council members to explain how you reached your decision in terms of approving the amendments at the hearing. I believe you owe this to your constituents, especially after so many voiced opposition to aspects of the project. So I hope tonight we'll have an opportunity to hear from each of you in terms of why you voted to approve those changes. It seems to me that the hearing was more as a requirement than as a desire to receive honest feedback, and that you as a general body had made up your minds even before the hearing was held. I recognize the property will be developed, but what troubles me is council's blatant disregard for the provision in the comprehensive plan, which did not underlined, allow for standalone apartment buildings. What has caused you to deviate from the plan? The reason behind this should be conveyed to your residents. Finally, my wife and I noticed Garmin staff and their Barley Snyder lawyer snickering as others spoke throughout the hearing. This was inconsiderate and rude and did nothing to begin to build a bridge between Garmin and the residents. And you, Madam President, should have called them out. Thank you very much.
Other comments?
My name is Marzel. I live at 22 on Stratford Road. I'm kind of going to mirror some of the things he said here, but last week I attended Borough Council's special meeting regarding the proposed amendments for the development at 741 999. I witnessed approximately 30 residents speak during the public comment, and only 4 expressed support for the proposed amendments. At one point, an attendee asked for a show of hands from those in attendance. Of the roughly 100 people or so in the room, probably 95 indicated they opposed those amendments. And while it's not a scientific poll, I believe it represented a meaningful cross-section of engaged residents. Despite the overwhelming expression of opposition, the council voted to approve the amendments. I find that outcome difficult to understand. One council member read from a prepared statement before voting, and while I appreciate the value of being prepared, it also gave the impression that the decision had already been made before public comment was heard. If this was the case, many residents, including myself, spent 2 hours participating in what felt like a process where our input could not be meaningful to the influence of the outcome. The perception is frustrating because public meetings should provide citizens with a genuine opportunity to be heard and considered. The reason I'm here tonight is simple. I would believe your constituents deserve an explanation of the council's vote was so clearly at odds with the overwhelming sentiment expressed by those who attended the meeting. It was mentioned several times that a developer has been working with the borough. I would like to understand what that means. When and where have these discussions taken place? What was discussed, and why was the public not included in those conversations? Transparency is essential if residents are to have confidence in this process. Many of us would also like to understand what benefits the borough received in exchange for approving these amendments. What deficiencies existed in the development plan that was approved only 3 years ago? From a resident's perspective, the most obvious change appears to be that the amendments make the project more profitable for the developer. The developer argued that the revised plan is preferable to what could otherwise be built and suggested that the additional commercial space would generate an estimated 1,000 to 1,500 additional vehicle trips. Given the current traffic volume and the anticipated growth over the coming years, that increase seems relatively modest. Furthermore, those projections are merely speculation. It appears that the primary motivation for these amendments is economic. Standalone apartments are generally easier to finance, market, and sell than mixed-use buildings with commercial space on the ground floor and apartments above. If the borough's zoning standards make it a project less profitable, that does not necessarily mean that those standards should be changed. It may simply mean that this particular developer's current proposal might not be the right fit. The current guidelines were adopted only 3 years ago. They were created to shape the development in a manner consistent with the borough's long-term vision. I've yet to hear a compelling public justification for changing them so soon, particularly when doing so runs contrary to the views expressed by the overwhelming majority of residents who participated in that process. I recognize this property will be developed. Most of us understand and accept that reality. However, the borough had the authority and the responsibility to ensure that development occurred according to the standards it established and the vision it presented to its residents. In the eyes of many citizens, the council chose instead to weaken those standards. Whether or not that perception is accurate, it has consequences. When residents take the time to attend meetings, voice their concerns, and participate in public process, they expect more than the opportunity to speak. They expect to be genuinely heard. When the outcome appears predetermined and inconsistent with the overwhelming public input, it reinforces the belief that the citizen participation has little impact on government decisions. So tonight, I respectfully ask each member of this council to explain what specific facts, public benefits, or planning considerations outweighed the overwhelming public opposition and justified your vote. I believe your constituents deserve that answer. Thank you.
Are there other public comments tonight?
Stephanie Hirsch at 72 Blue Rock Road. Unfortunately, we were not able to be at the meeting on Thursday night because of an emergency in our family. But I did see some online. One of the comments that I was going to mention Thursday night that I did not because I wasn't there was the survey. How many of you are aware or did the survey for residents that we were asked to participate in? I see here on this particular one, you can go right on the website and just but put in the search survey comprehensive plan, and it'll come up. But it gives all the results, and the single family attached homes that were, well, the title of this particular question is, please check the top 3 types of new housing that you believe are most needed in Millersville. Single family home houses were the most, and that was about 70%. The next highest was townhouses, and that was 55%. Side-by-side twin houses, looks like 35%. There's another one, housing targeted for, I'm not sure what that one was, that's 40%. Apartment buildings was not the lowest, but right there, 15% felt that. And if I understand right, this survey was done for the purpose of putting together the comprehensive plan. That's what I understood, as what the residents wanted, what they wanted to see for their town. And so I just wanted to make that known to everybody, that this is available to be looked at. And I was disappointed because the residents really desired something different.
Anyone else?
Randall Snyder, 209 Manor Avenue. I have two questions. This ordinance that was passed, is it just for that development?
Essentially, yes.
It will not affect any other development in the borough?
There is one piece of tract of land that is also zoned traditional neighborhood development, but it is already in the process of being constructed as a solar farm.
What I'm interested about is if the Eshman School is moved and they want to put apartments back there, we have to go through this whole thing again.
That area is not zoned traditional neighborhood overlay.
So it would not apply.
And the majority of the development is that,
If you would want to do that, we'd have to go through this all again.
Yes.
I don't know that much of that proposed development is in the borough.
It's just a school, but last time he talked about putting apartments, standalone apartments.
Yes, we would have to go through this process again. It is not zoned for any of that use at this time.
My other question to the mayor was on the advertiser in June. The new fire hall was $10 million.
11 million.
I picked up my advertiser last week, and it went up to $11 million.
Oh.
Why $11 million?
It's designed to be fully equipped. The firehouse that's located across the street from the Weiss, that was like a $5 or $6 million house. But that did not include anything, nothing. It wasn't furnished with anything.
Then why weren't we told $11 million right off the bat? What I can't understand is they want all this stuff. We have 30 pieces of apparatus. Lancaster City has 6 pieces and answers over 3,800 calls a year. We have all kinds of apparatus that's not getting out. It's just not, we don't have the volunteers. So let's be sensible about it. Why do we need such a big fire hall if we can't get the trucks? Is it a glorified garage?
Well, what it's going to do, it's going to eliminate 2 existing ones that are outdated, and we've been pumping money into.
They only answer 10% of the calls. The majority of the calls are right around here. And you're gonna add 1,000 homes, and we're gonna put a big fire hall 8 miles away, waiting for them to respond, because they can respond faster. But how can you respond faster? I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I was told station 907, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 is out of service. What good is that doing us?
Well,
What good is it doing?
that's the cost of the buildings of today. That's
And
what it's going to cost.
all this other stuff has to be read into the cost of that building.
Yeah, you look at the fire trucks, at one time, they were $300,000-$400,000. Now we're looking at $750,000 of $1 million
I
worth.
understand that, but we don't need 30
And it's
people.
just the cost of everything going up all
I
the time.
understand that totally, because I was in the fire company for 28 years. I
Yeah.
totally understand that. But I think we have too many pieces.
Well, you could come to one of the Blue Rock Fire Commission
When are
meetings.
they held? Because everything I look into has a date, the time, but no place of where they meet.
Well, we meet at the firehouse company in Millersville.
Why isn't that in your newsletter?
I'm sorry,
Why isn't that in the newsletter?
I didn't hear what you.
Well, it's not listed in the newsletter, the location.
No, I don't know, I have to see.
It's just questions that I have. I have a lot of questions.
That's fine.
And I can't, I mean, I know I'm a meeting too early. I should have came at the end of the month. But why does our district commissioner never show up at the meetings that we can ask him those questions.
Well,
I
we,
mean, you're head of the police department, there's just the police chief.
yeah, well, if there's some action required from the fire commissioner, we would certainly bring him in, but he's on
I
the,
think he should be here at his meetings, so if there is questions, he can answer them. That's his
He's on it.
job. I mean, let's face it, that's his job.
his schedule is 24/7, around the clock. He'll show up for any of the fires that are going on, any day of the week, holidays.
But he's
He's
head of the
here.
department, he's head of the whole
Yeah.
department. He should be here.
Well, if
He
we
should
had
be
some,
here.
we have some
Brett is here,
questions.
But the zoning guy shows up. I'm sorry. Okay, you get my point.
Thank you. Yeah.
Come to our meeting,
When, where are they?
or the first Thursday of the month at
Where?
6.
At what building? Where? Here? Millersville Fire Hall, Washington, where?
Let's get your
Millersville Fire
email
Station.
afterwards. If you left it on the,
I think it
the
should
sign,
be-
and
I think it
we'll,
should be in the news.
I think you're right. Anyone else with public comments? All right, then I will take time to address some of the earlier comments. It was my intention with my remarks at the hearing that they responded to why I was voting the way I was. I apologize if I wasn't as eloquent and conveyed that as clearly as I should have. Residents certainly do deserve to understand why their elected officials are voting the way they are. So, when I voted in favor of the amendment, I did so after considering the history of the property, the purpose of the amendment, and the information presented over several years. The long-term interests of the borough were at the forefront of my mind. It's important to look at the timeline. The property has been discussed for several years, certainly as long as I've been involved with the borough, which I joined the Planning Commission in 2017. So it's always been discussed, and we always knew the potential was there for a good project for Millersville there. During the time that developers were coming before council and before Planning Commission, the Planning Commission decided that the best approach was to update the comprehensive plan. This was in 2021. The process included public surveys that you mentioned, community input, months of discussion about how Millersville should grow, and it was to serve as a guide for future development. They were all public meetings. Everyone in the community was invited. They were monthly for 13 months about. We did have a consultant who came and helped facilitate the program. So that was, you would have seen outreach at that time. And we had a large group that came to every meeting, and it was really, really productive. I think people in favor and opposed to the development in whole came to an agreement. And that was, the result was the comprehensive plan. And as I said, it was to serve as a guide for future development. But we also know that property owners have the right to petition zoning. They can always come before council and request amendments. And it was the intent of the comprehensive plan that any developer who would do that, it would force them to talk to us, to present plans, to share what their intentions for the parcel were. And that we would be able to do a kind of give and take and work with them in order to collaborate. And that is essentially what has happened. This developer did show a willingness to work with the borough. And our responsibility as council members is to evaluate the amendments based on the facts, our planning documents, and what is in the borough's long-term best interest. The purpose of the traditional neighborhood district has always been to encourage a mix of housing types, walkability, recreation, and commercial opportunities. And in my view, the approved amendments remain consistent with those goals. They do not dramatically change the fact that there'll be mixed housing, mixed-use commercial, single-family homes, parkland, trails, and walkability, a real traditional neighborhood approach. Secondly, I heard many concerns about apartments, and I certainly understand those concerns. However, just general opposition to apartments alone was not enough to justify denying a zoning amendment. We have responsibility to everyone in the borough to make the decisions based on the principles and information presented, not just on personal preference. We could find ourselves in some trouble if we acted just on preference. Third, the concern I heard most consistently over the past years, including since the comprehensive plan 2021, was in regards to traffic. Everyone's concerned about traffic. I'm concerned about traffic. It's the biggest component of any development that's going to affect our daily lives. The approved amendment gives the developer the option to build standalone apartments rather than requiring commercial space below. This allows them to reduce parking and reduce traffic trips. They said 1,500, if I'm remembering correctly, vehicle trips per day. That is a direct relationship to reducing traffic. And I think if maybe that was made more clear, more folks would be on board. Those plans were presented in 2024 to the previous council, and everyone was in favor of the preferred plan, was what it was called, which did allow for standalone apartments and the reduced parking and reduced trips. So that was a big concern of mine, is addressing the traffic. So finally, I just want everyone to know that your comments were heard. The vote was not an approval of a specific development. It just allows more flexibility moving forward, and there will be additional reviews. We'll address traffic and stormwater and engineering, and there will be public input. All of these meetings, council meetings, planning commission meetings are all open to the public. The council meetings are live streamed. Our emails are out there. You're welcome to get in touch with us. I think there were some great points made. I'm considering, one that stood out was connections to Quaker Hills and how that's going to look. Safety of pedestrians in Quaker Hills, possibly considering, extending sidewalks. But there's lots of things like that that will be able to be discussed and evaluated moving forward if the developer chooses to do so. Lastly, I want to say, as council members, it's our jobs to consider all of the information. I think we all knew that the decision we were making was not the popular one in the room, but that it is our job to use all of the information we have, the almost decade-long history of this property, the guidance we have received from our solicitor, from our experts on the Planning Commission, from other residents who weren't at the meeting, to take all of that into consideration and do what is in best interest long-term for the borough. This is not what's right for the borough this year or this week, but long-term, we have to look at it that way. And we would just not be valuable as elected officials to anyone if we were just short-sighted and went with, prevalent preference. And that's why I believe that the TND amendment was the right decision. I'll let anyone else on council comment if they have other things to say. And I will also say that I did not notice any snickering from the developer. I did hear some talking and some comments throughout the night, but none I felt rose to the extent to be addressed. Certainly not from the developer, but in future meetings, I will pay closer attention and make sure that no one's speaking out of turn. Mike, you wanted to?
Yeah, you mentioned two of my main concerns. I didn't have my mind up before I went into the meeting. I listened to everybody, and the two concerns I had would be traffic, as almost everyone had that concern. I offered some suggestions, and I hope that PennDOT could act on these, make different entrances and exits to that place, with a great hope that you wouldn't have that entrance into the the east side residents there. That was my second concern. If I lived on the east side, I would be very concerned about this. I thought about this long and hard, but I know it's going to be developed, and I've lived in Millersville since '75. I knew that wasn't going to be farmland forever, and so I just look at it that way. I miss, when my kids were young, we walked to Rhodes Pharmacy. I hope this development has a pharmacy there. I'd like to walk to things in Millersville and not have to drive everywhere. But my final decision was, I look back at Garmin's plans, it does look like a nice community. They put forth that effort. And I can't speak for everyone here, but I listened, and it took me a long time to get over the fact that people that live on the east side are not going to be looking at the land that they used to look at. That was a big factor for me. So I'm sorry that's a disappointment to you. But I do think the development will be a good one from the plans that I've seen. And I think we need it.
Sir, what was your name? I remember seeing you there on Thursday. Yeah. Dave, thank you. I missed it last time. I missed it when you were up at the mic. Dave, Mr. Albert, Ms. Hirsch, what we voted on Thursday was not whether or not to develop that land or whether or not to have apartments. That ship has long since sailed. 15 months ago, I served on this body as its president, and our chair of Public Works and Public Safety asked Garmin to develop a series of plans based on what council might be willing to vote on. A by right plan by which nothing would need to be voted on, they would just develop as is. What we ended up going with, which was called the preferred plan, which is sort of a mix of a couple of different factors, and their original plan, which is what caused a lot of uproar when the development was initially put before us, that sort of prioritized commercial space and things of that nature. What we voted on that, whatever it was, February of last year, 15 months ago, was a plan that maximized the amount of green space and therefore the amount of drainage and least impact to stormwater, the least amount of traffic. But in order to carry that plan out, there needed to be some amendments, and those are the amendments they brought to us to vote on Thursday. I appreciate what everybody in that room had to say. Nobody wants more traffic. Nobody wants more pressure on our schools, on our emergency services, on our infrastructure. But we're also not in a position to tell one private landowner who he can and cannot sell his land to. All we can do is try to manage the fallout from whatever that development might look like. And within what we were willing to do and what the public at the time seemed willing to put up with, that's the plan we came up with, was slightly more pitched roofs, an emphasis on green space, and less traffic through that area, which did require the use of standalone apartments, which I know is very unpopular. A vote of no on Thursday night would not have led to less traffic. It would have led to less green space. And it's based on modeling. In order for this construction to go, this is one step in the process. In order for this development to go through, we do require a traffic study. We have grant money from PennDOT in order to make sure that whatever traffic improvements are made are being taken care of. But in order to know what the traffic looks like, a plan needs to be made. In order for that plan to be made, they need to know what ordinances they need to follow. The best guess of council and of our partners with Garmin and whomever is what we voted on Thursday. So my vote for yes on Thursday wasn't a vote for standalone apartments. It wasn't a vote for higher apartments or anything like that. It was based on the facts on the ground,
what do we need to change to minimize the impact on the borough? That is what they brought to us. That is why I voted yes.
Thanks, Joe.
Joe stole my almost word for word.
Yeah, I know, you'll go through a whole thing,
Appreciate
I get
that,
it.
Joe.
I stole the note cards out of your jacket.
Apparently. Something to add to Joe's is, we did listen. It was not predetermined. I've seen that we all got paid for our vote. I've seen that the question was, do we talk to developers in private? When we say discussions with developers, we're talking about in these meetings, having discussions with them. When they send plans to us for the meetings, no one's meeting with anyone behind closed doors. We take very seriously transparency and not having, like, sunshine laws are there for a reason. No one is meeting behind closed doors to make secret plans that no one wants and getting paid for it. It's just not. So I'd like, not faith, but just, we are considering. I thought people would think that we were considering a little more than just going in and saying, I have no idea what I'm doing, and we'll just vote yes. It wasn't like that. I know it may appear that way, but as Lauren said, if 100 people come out of a borough that's roughly 7,800 people and want something done, and we do it with those 100 people, I feel like that's alienating the rest of the borough as well. So we're looking at long-term, we're taking everything into account. It is not just, I heard that we didn't respect people's pleas for things. We're all in this together, living in a borough together. We all live here as well. So we're all just trying to make this work the best we can for as many people as we can in the borough. It is sincere. I am not doing this because I don't understand what's going on or I don't care. So that was my personal view on the vote, and it did feel like people thought we were people that weren't involved with the borough and we were not considered the borough. We live here. So my kids, live here. So that's the reason I voted for it, was the traffic. It wasn't about standalone apartments. It was about how the amendment was for commercial space on the first floor of apartments or not. That was the amendment. So that's what my vote was.
Thanks. Mike on the phone, do you want to make a comment?
Yes, thank you. Basically, many of the comments that were made by other councilmen so far, council members so far, I concur with it, and they reflect my opinion as well in many ways. I want to say that it was impressive to hear so many comments from the people who were there that I largely agreed with. I think the idea that we have to be careful about traffic, we want walkability, sidewalks, we want to make sure that the neighborhood is livable and consistent with the attitudes and values of the people of Millersville. However, when it comes down to it, it seemed as if everything that was in the changes that were being proposed to the ordinance made sense in terms of developing, in terms of the type of development that has to go into that area. I believe that, as President House mentioned, that there will be further opportunities for careful decision-making to be made in regards to traffic and other details, primarily the traffic. But at this point, I want to emphasize that my vote was driven by what I thought was in the best interest of the borough in general. And while I appreciated the significant input and of the people who were there, I think that most of the concerns can be addressed going forward.
Thanks, Mike. Greg, I know you were a nay, but
I was a nay,
we're going to give
yes,
you the
I was.
opportunity to talk as well.
I would love to have an opportunity to talk, thank you. I realized that this, as has been said, this was going to be developed, this is going to be apartments. traffic is gonna be terrible. There's just no two ways about it. But my perspective, since this could not be broken down and voted on differently, was a priority on the commercial spaces down below. I felt like that was a very important part of the plan. Being a business owner, I realize how difficult it is to be able to open a business in Millersville because there's very few spaces that are zoned commercial for that purpose. And with this being in that zone, within the zoning of being commercial, I thought that was a very good use for that space. And being pretty close to that area, I would really like to be able to walk to a favorite restaurant, or as Michael said, a pharmacy, or who knows what. And also make Millersville a little more of a destination spot, a place that people think of a little differently than just having the high school or the college here. So I was, to me, having the commercial aspect of it was very important, and just trying to make something that's a little difficult to swallow a little easier. So unfortunately, it didn't go through the way we had expected it, or as I expected it, but that's why we're here. You know, we all have our own perspectives on it, and I don't disagree with anyone else's perspective. They have their own, and I don't know if they agree with mine, but that's okay.
All right, thank you. I hope that answers some of the questions. I know folks are still unhappy, but at least hopefully you understand our perspective and why the vote went the way it did. Thank you for participating.
Hold us accountable.
Yeah, that's absolutely why the process is there. We'll move on now to, we have 3 action items tonight. The first 2 are escrow reduction requests from developers in the borough. I believe this is a pretty standard practice when a development project is partway through, they want some of their money back. Do you want to expand upon that, Rebecca?
Sure, absolutely. The first one is an escrow reduction request from Murray Construction for the Bella Rida Crossgates project, also called Crossgates Phase 2. I think this may be our first reduction request of this year. So for those who are newer to council, what typically happens for our developments is that when, like Lauren said, when the project is moving along, they submit a request to the borough asking for that escrow to be reduced. We hold a certain amount of escrow based on the price of the project. That escrow is held in typically a standard letter of credit. When we get those requests in, we send them right to our engineer. He spends some time doing inspections, seeing what work has actually been done, if it's up to the standard that we have in our ordinances. And then at that point, our engineer makes a recommendation based on the work that has been done and what he's found in his review. As you'll see in the first one, the request was for a considerable amount more than what our engineer recommended. That is because in the site review, our engineer was concerned about a number of things, so asked that they go back to the drawing board and continue to work on the project and deal with a couple of the issues that they found. So that's why the recommendation for the first escrow request in front of us is only looking to reduce the escrow held by $26,884.33. So escrow being held still would be $563,994.09.
What was the amount requested by the developer, by Murray?
I believe, hold on, I can tell you that they had requested it to go all the way down to $474,551.10.
Considerably more modest, all right.
This is not unusual.
No.
This does happen.
That's why we have an engineer.
Yes.
Then I will make a motion to approve the execution of reduction of escrow held on the Bella Ride Crossgates project by the $26,884.33 recommended by our engineer, leaving the escrow amount held on the project at $563,994.09.
I'll second that.
Who seconded? Okay. Thanks, Ryan. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this? All right, all those in favor of approving the execution of reduction of escrow held on the Bella Ride Crossgates project by $26,884.33, leaving the escrow amount held on the project at $563,994.09. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right.
And the other one would be a little bit different. This is for the Winfield project with Garmin Builders. They submitted an escrow reduction request. They're making great progress on phase 2 of their project. Our engineer found that a good number of the work that they had said that they completed was indeed complete, so made a recommendation to reduce a considerable amount, reduce it by $490,846.16, bringing their total to just $297,988.04.
I will make a motion to approve the execution of the reduction of escrow held at the Winfield at Millersville Phase 2 project by $490,846.16, leaving the escrow amount held on the project at $297,988.04.
I'll second it.
Oh, I think Greg beat you.
Got him.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Greg.
You're welcome.
Discussion? All right, all those in favor of executing the reduction of escrow held on the Winfield at Millersville Phase 2 project by $490,846.16, leaving the escrow amount held on the project at $297,988.04. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. Next up, we have sale of unnecessary personal property. Has a ring to it.
Which is a little of a weird title, but that is what the resolution
We're
is.
going to do a yard
Yeah.
sale?
No, not this time. But I get to share really good news tonight. As we planned with last year's budget, there were a couple of items, one that was going to be replaced this year, and then a couple of other equipment items that the borough just no longer needed. We planned in last year's budget to this year be able to put those items on Municipid, which is a bidding platform for municipalities in Pennsylvania. It is done really well for it. It did really well for us last year, doing really well for us this year. The items to be sold that we got very good bids on, the Tramac hydraulic hammer, the 2014 Gravely Pro Turn mower, the 1996 JRB 10-foot, wow, snowplow, and the 1996 John Deere wheel loader. The wheel loader was replaced. All have been bid, been sold to the highest bidder. The borough will be bringing in approximately $40,450 in revenue from these, both going into our general capital reserve and our sewer capital reserve. And these we did budget these as revenue, so it is a little bit more than we had expected, which is great. But going into our revenue lines for this year.
Always like found money.
Yeah, that's great.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the sale of unnecessary personnel property.
Second.
Well, second.
You almost got it, Mike.
Greg beat you. Any other discussion on this?
Good job getting more than the asking price.
Yeah. Is Municipid a place where only other municipalities can bid, or is it a public?
Municipalities are the bidders, and then the public, anybody can bid on the items.
Okay.
I think
Sorry, that hydraulic hammer already sold, honestly.
you were going to use it. The
Might have.
oh, sure. No,
Well, good to know.
I think most of them went to like private companies and stuff.
Okay. All right, well, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor of approving the resolution to authorize the sale of unnecessary personal property signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have 2 workshop items for discussion only, no votes. The first is the Millersville University divestment plan. Oh,
Good evening, and thank you, as always, for allowing us to make a presentation here this evening. Council President, council members, Mayor, we are, my colleague Tom Waltz and I think many of you are familiar with Tom. We're here this evening to talk about a divestment plan that has multiple parts and will likely take place over a longer period of time, if so allowed and approved. Over the past several years, Millersville University has conducted a comprehensive review of our residential properties that are on the periphery of our campus. You would be thinking about some of the properties we own on Cottage, some of the properties we own on George, some of the properties on Frederick, for example. These would be the kind of peripheral properties that we're referring to this evening. These homes were acquired over time as part of a long-range planning for the university that right now no longer serve an active institutional purpose. Our response to the review, the comprehensive review that's taken place, is a 3-part strategy. What we're seeking to do is to sell selected properties to private buyers for reuse as homes. Second, leasing other properties to community-serving organizations. And third, demolishing selected properties that are no longer viable for any productive use for us. Tonight's demolition request is one component of those 3 pieces. I would tell you that I've been involved at Millersville University for over 20 years. I can tell you that I've never seen a time when our borough and university relationship has been stronger and more multifaceted. Over the past several years, I think we've built really strong working relationships, including collaborating on issues from public safety and community development to economic vitality and quality of life. We come to you tonight as a partner in the hopes that we can look forward to more community-minded decision-making. The council should know that Millersville University has already used a number of these smaller campus properties to house important community-serving organizations. You're familiar with LEMSA on the corner now of what used to be our old police station, right? LEMSA, the Lancaster Emergency Services Agency, is strategically located now on our campus, serving both the university community and the community in the borough. The Children's Dyslexia Center of Lancaster is also now occupying one of our residential properties, and they're a community-based organization that is providing educational support to children and their families around the region. These kind of instances where we're working with community-based organizations really for us is an intentional commitment to being a responsible anchor in the community. I also want to draw your attention to the fact that there is the potential for concrete fiscal impact embedded in our request. 8 of the properties in our presentation are slated for sale to private buyers for reuse. These properties are currently, as you know, are not, I underline not, on the tax rolls. This would be putting them back on the tax rolls, right? So once sold to private owner occupants, these changes would be immediate, and the borough, as well as the county and the school district, would begin to accrue perpetually then the tax revenue afforded it. Genuinely a win to put some of these properties back on your tax roll and the tax roll of the other taxing entities. We also feel that this request is consistent with the borough's own planning goals. We had our own planning process on campus that we had representatives from the community on, and vice versa, when you were creating yours. Through your long-term master planning process, you've created the business overlay district along George Street, a visionary step toward increasing commercial and retail vitality along our shared corridor. That vision is already being realized, or about to be realized, with the mixed-use development project that you've already approved for Student Lodging Incorporated. There are, the properties that we're addressing tonight fit within that same framework. We would be clearing underutilized structures to create new opportunity, reduce blight, and add green space back into the community. And I would stress that in light of your previous conversations. I want to point out also, before we get into some of the specifics, I want to point out also that Millersville University is not alone in these decisions or these types of plans. The governor has asked all state agencies, in fact directed state agencies, across the Commonwealth to assess their property for greater efficiencies. Across the PASHI system that Millersville is part of, several of our peer institutions are actively engaged in similar processes of evaluating, selling, leasing, or demolishing unused properties. Think about some of our Western Pennsylvania campuses as an example. The calculus for public universities like Millersville and others has changed. We are no longer capable of carrying excess residential properties. Structures requiring ongoing maintenance that Tom will talk about, with no corresponding and current institutional benefit. We are right-sizing for our footprint deliberately, transparently, and working through the processes of the borough. So we are here this evening to give you a preview of what some of those specifics could look like. And I truly do thank you for your patience and attention, because I do know this is a complicated issue, not unlike your previous issues. So again, I appreciate your time and effort. I turn it over to my colleague, Tom.
Thank you again. My name is Thomas Waltz. I'm the Associate VP for Facilities for the university. And as Dr. Santos mentioned, back in 2024, we conducted a comprehensive space optimization study. This was actually funded by PASHI. The university didn't have to fund this because, again, it was a more of a Commonwealth PASHI system initiative. So this study assessed, several objectives. How are we using our classrooms, all this stuff. But they inventoried 97 buildings, approximately 1.9 million square feet of space. They compared that with our enrollment, our staffing, both from employees, faculty, staff, what our future projections looking like, and using university or the system standards. Okay, hey, based on this FTE count, this is how much space you're supposed to have. Based on those projections, our appropriations are established. So, as the university, and this is, countrywide, the demographics have changed. There's less graduating high school students. Not all high school students go into higher ed. They go into the trades or the military. So as we shrink, we still have the same footprint. So that kind of just drives the space optimization study into a space divestment plan. So what we're looking for is, that study identified approximately 236,000 square feet surplus. So that's like probably twice of the science complex. So that's a lot of space. What we're proposing on the space divestment, and it's a package layer, you know, we're going to sell some of the properties that are on the periphery of campus. You know, so again, Cottage, Prince, East and West Frederick, George Street, and demolish the ones that are like really internal to the campus. Nichols House is surrounded by a parking lot. There's no street access to it. There's no, it's like, yeah, so the ones that are kind of nestled in those are the ones we identified as not really marketable. So we identified those to, you know, again, we'll recommend the demolition of those going through the borough's ordinance. So in summary, we're looking at a total of 12 properties to be demolished, 8 to be sold, 8 to be maintained, and 4 to be leased. Tentative plans, again, that's our current plan. And it depends on who owns these properties. So university is probably about a 50-50 split on all these. So DGS is the Commonwealth owner for most of agency properties. However, the university has either been donated properties over the decades, or we have bought the properties. So depending on who owns them drives that process. Some processes are quicker than others. When DGS is involved, it's going to take a little bit longer. So again, we're going to go through this approval process, but the implementation of whatever is approved may take a little bit longer. We coordinated with PHMC as well, and we have their mitigating measures for the historic properties. Again, most of these are going to be Class 2 historic. We don't have any Class 1 properties, nothing on the National Registry, so, but we have their mitigating strategies, and we're still working on those. So cost avoidance, deferred maintenance. So what I did is I looked, it was kind of hard because it was easier to do with like commercial buildings, but for residential houses, we don't replace roofs on buildings, you know, houses every year, you know. So I took a 3-year average of work orders and projects for all of our houses to try to get a annual average. I did that with utilities. I did that with operating costs like grounds and housekeeping. And by, and this proposal included Whitmer and Gerhardt. I did not include those numbers in this number I'm going to give you, but we're looking at saving approximately $200,000 annually by the divestment process. If I was to throw Whitmer and Gerhardt in, you're going to throw that up another couple $100,000. I need a new elevator. I need a new HVAC system. So I didn't want to muddy the waters with these big numbers for these big projects. So again, reducing the building portfolio. So by the proposed plan, it will take it down to 86,000 square feet. So that's roughly 36% reduction in that surplus I provided you. The other part of the divestment is we had leased properties. So SLI, Jeff Beers, we released some properties from him. So at the end of the lease, we didn't renew those, so they just went back. So those were, now he's moving his operations from university buildings into those, his properties. Two of our epic values is compassion and inclusion. So, you know, these residential houses that we're proposing to divest of are not accessible. You know, you got the front steps, you got the stoop on the porch, you got the door entranceway, you got the corridors in the house, you got the bathrooms. So just from inclusion, you know, we're moving these operations, and we've moved probably 99% of the proposed houses into commercial buildings. The only remaining one is archaeology, which is in Gerhardt Hall. We're doing a little renovation in Macomsey, but we target that to be relocated by the end of July this month. So our intentions is to, again, go present this to the Historic Commission. We're trying to get on the schedule for the 10th of August. and then the zoning hearing board for the 27th of August. So I guess ordinance, section 380 to Act 30, demolition of historic properties requires a special exemption. So that is our proposal, and I would welcome any comments or concerns that you may have that I could address in the upcoming meetings.
Can
So,
we get a list of the properties?
yeah, I'm gathering that you may have some properties in the demolition that might involve the Historic Commission?
Yes, yes, sir, and that's why I want to present to them. So I do have a list, I can email it to Rebecca tomorrow.
That'd be great. I mean, I know we're not taking action, but I know you do want our comments. So 2 of the 3 things I love the, returning properties to the tax roll, especially along our corridors. That's great for single or multifamily or business. And use by, nonprofit organizations. It's the demolition of historic properties that I'm concerned about. And since I haven't seen a list, I can't give you specifics. But I know that is a sensitive topic. We've seen some nice historic homes demolished for parking lots in the past. So that's my concern.
Well, I'm on the Historic Commission, so I'm concerned about that as well, so.
Certainly, a fiscally sustainable, university is beneficial to the borough. So I think it's great that you've gone through this exercise and are going to release these properties. So again, my only concern is what those demolished properties, what their location is, what they look like, could they be rehabilitated, and what would be in their place? Is it just green space? Is it playground? Is it dog park? Is it just parking? Those are my concerns.
And this list doesn't identify the proposed, most of it will be green space, but like for Nichols House, we have a capital project, $45 million for the Science Center. So as you know, Roddy was the original Science Center, and then Caputo was built, and Roddy has outlived its service life. So the intent is to build an annex and then demo Roddy in the future. So this is looking at 2030 to start. Again, this is a capital project, takes a while. So that would be, we'll go south of Caputo, which is where Nichols House. Now, the other properties, there's several properties around the industrial area, Palmer, Bishop, the maintenance, and garage area, which would be green space. But if you want that type of information on the list I provide to Rebecca, I can add those too.
That'd be great. That'd be great. I think we'd all like to just have a better understanding of where those properties are.
12 demolished properties and 8 leased to community serving organizations. Are those correct numbers?
Yes, and I wanted to add to Dr. DeSantis, we also did support the loft for a temporary time as they will transition into Lemza's former location. And then we also have Community Action Partnership daycare on campus for a couple years until they found another. So again, that's a continuing trend that we try to bring in. We did have a request from American Red Cross. We tried to offer them a house, but they wanted more of a warehouse setting. So, but those discussions continue.
As usual, I applaud the university's partnership with the community and try to be a service to us civically. You've always dealt with us very fairly, and I appreciate that. But with that being said, is there something in these lease agreements, or what is the wording, to guarantee that your lessees are servants of the community? I heard our council president say nonprofit. Is it something along those lines that's required of the lessees?
I need to get a little bit more information because our procurement office deals with that. It
Sure.
does have to be tied to our academic mission.
At your convenience, my understanding is that you are not trying to solicit an ask from us of any substance tonight or likely in the near future, but out of concern for the community, I would like to know what what the shape or the limits of those agreements are. Just in the interest of transparency, it's obviously the university's land. We just want to make sure that if we're making claims that this is going to be of service to the community, what that specifically looks like. Otherwise, as far as square footage, I think you may have answered this. You have properties of a number of various sizes. Of those to be demolished versus leased versus sold to private individuals, what kind of breakdown does that look like? So the 8 properties are going to be sold as homes, for example. Is that roughly the same size as the properties that are going to be leased to these community organizations? And are they, in comparison, what does that look like versus what's going to be destroyed?
I have those numbers, and, you know, it's a.
I don't expect you to have them memorized. It's fine.
Yeah.
This
If
is
I brought my computer, I'd have all that stuff.
just in the interest of being informed and being able to field what our constituents are going to want to know about, and everybody's going to want to know kind of the physical shape and get their head around it. The number of properties is nice, but when we're talking about, say, maybe a Fulton House compared to a Macumsey, we're talking about two very different property sizes.
Yeah, the majority of the houses, you know, again, I have two buildings, which was Whitmer, Infirmary, and Gearhart.
Sure.
You know, but all the houses, you know, it's a residential house, so you're going to compare like a Cumberland to a Mercer. So
Yeah,
roughly.
they're both one property, but we're talking about what is that eventually going to look like? How much of this is going to become green space parking, whatever it might be. But that's it for me.
If you could also include the contact for who people could reach out to for the lease opportunities, that'd be great as well.
Santos would be.
And again, I know that Tom said it, but I want to reiterate, anything that we do in terms of leasing a piece of property that is on our campus footprint, we have to verify that that is part of our educational mission, which is why LEMSA, certainly part of our educational mission. The Children's Dyslexia Center of Lancaster, again, part of our educational mission. So we have to ensure that there is some time.
So is that mission something that relates back to your status as a state organization or as an educational institution?
I believe that's as an educational institution.
Okay. So like PASHI rather than PA State. Fair enough.
But again, we will also verify that specific language for you as well.
It's appreciated. I understand.
I really appreciate these comments. Anything else?
Mike on the phone, if you have any questions or comments.
Still with us.
I'm good right now, thanks.
Okay, just want to make sure. Rebecca, do you have any?
I can give you two things. One, process related, where things go from here. And
Please.
the second being the borough's involvement thus far, if you want that information. In terms of process, so as required, because these properties are Class 2, historic by date only, they have to go through the special exception process through zoning hearing board. So when they submit the packet, the request to go to zoning hearing board, that will trigger us scheduling a historic commission meeting. Historic commission will review the properties to be demolished, and then those comments will be used to help zoning hearing board in their decision making for each of the demo properties, not touching the other properties, but just on the demo properties. As part of that, there's a number of things in our ordinance that they have to provide in order to go to zoning hearing board to ask for that special exception. Structural engineers report, historical information on the properties if there is any. Like I said, they are just, Class 2 means that they're simply historic by date only. One of the other things is a property maintenance report provided by the borough. Tom, Kayla, myself, and Rob had a couple of really fun days going into a number of the properties. Of course, it happened to be the hottest couple of days last month, so that was a really fun adventure. The borough already provided back to the university the property maintenance inspection report for all of the properties looking to be demolished, so that they have that in order to go to zoning hearing board. So that's been the borough's involvement up until this point, specifically on the property maintenance side.
And looking forward, what kind of action is going to be looked for out of council here? Any?
Not necessarily anything specifically related to approval for demo. That is specifically in the hands of the zoning hearing board. But just as Historic Commission can give recommendations to a zoning hearing board, so can council give your recommendations to zoning hearing board as well. So that would be the council's involvement up until this point, unless something were to change.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Any other comments for the university? Anything else? All right.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, mid-year financial update. Rebecca,
Oh, yes.
take it away.
All right. I'm going to try to make this short and sweet as best as I can. But it's really important stuff, so I want to make sure it gets a good amount of time. So in your backup, I had a couple of things that you're used to seeing. The statement of revenue and expenditure and check register for June, because it's July. We're looking at half the year. We're looking at that put in June. Overall, I say the borough is generally in a very good financial position. Right now, we're looking at revenues being ahead of budget expectations for this point in the year. And generally, expenditures are remaining, for the most part, below budget. There are some revenue and expenditures that occur at certain times throughout the year that are uneven. So I'll talk a little bit about those, but for the most part, we're looking at a very healthy spot for halfway through the year. Specifically looking at our general fund, we are coming in, actually, it's 73% of our annual budget is collected at this point. We're doing very, very well, and I'll touch on a couple of the reasons why I think we're at this really good point mid-year. Overall, we're at 95% of real estate taxes collected, which is great. And for a borough of our size and a structure that we have, I also think it's really great. Not to say there's anything wrong with different tax collection agencies or things like that, but one of the great things about the borough doing the tax collection is that we really can ensure that all of the taxes are being collected and going straight into the general fund for direct use. So we're doing very well, 95% of tax collected. We're doing very well on our pilot payments. Those pilot payments are payments in lieu of taxes from our nonprofit agencies. Those are not required. Those are some of them are through agreements, some of them are just generous donations that we get from different nonprofits in the borough. We already have gone past 100% of what we had expected to bring in for pilot. We're doing very well at this point in the year on earned income tax and local service tax, hitting just around 50%, which is what we would expect. A couple of other revenue highlights. We're doing very well on building permits this year. We're actually over 100% of what we expected on budget for building permits. A lot of that has to do with the residential construction going on in the borough, Winfield, Crossgates, and also a lot of it has to do with the generic building permits, fences, sheds, solar panels, additions, things like that. Those are things that aren't necessarily easy to always anticipate. We don't know how many people are going to want to do a new fence next year, but we try our best based on trends to be able to put that into the budget. So the fact that we're doing very well on permits means that the borough is feeling, the residents are feeling healthy in terms of their spend on things that require permits. We're doing very well on our engineering and legal reimbursements, bringing in money that we expend initially for different developer conversations or different engineering projects going on, we charge for those services because that's them coming to the borough asking for our solicitor, our engineer, and then we bill them afterwards. We're bringing in what we're putting out, which is great because it's not really the borough's, you know, the residents don't need to be subsidizing someone else coming in to use our solicitor's time, for example. And we're also doing very well on our stormwater management plan fees. Very hard to judge year over year, but we've hit what we anticipated from the budget. Also, court fines, really hard to judge year over year, but we have achieved what we kind of expected we were going to get for court fines. And a couple of other great things, revenue from prior year expenses, we're over 100% on that. That is from some really important things. Healthcare surplus, because we are part of a wonderful self-funded insurance cooperative. Any money that we put forward expecting it to go towards health insurance claims that doesn't, we get it back. Which if we were part of a fully funded insurance or doing this ourselves, we might not have that realization of that surplus. So it's a really big deal that we get that, as well as we got surplus on our workers' comp, as well as we continue to get loyalty credits from Highmark, our insurance provider. So this really strong, stronger than anticipated revenue coming in at this point in the borough allows us for a little bit of flexibility going into the second part of the year, and a bit of a sigh. In terms of things, there are some large things that will come in later in the year as well. Our pension state aid, our public utility realty tax, our foreign fire insurance tax, some of those things come in later. We just got $40,000 with the sale of those things. That hasn't actually been realized into the budget documents yet, but it happened with your approval this evening. And then there's a couple things that we're monitoring that are not hitting where we'd want them to at this point. One of them is the cable franchise fee. Not surprisingly, less people are buying cable. So with the franchise fees that we have, if Comcast sells cable to someone, because they have a franchise agreement in the borough, we get a certain amount. If people aren't buying cable, then we're not bringing that money. So what that tells us is less people are getting cable these days. Housing licenses are a little slower, but that also is mostly attributed to the time of year. We expect as we get into the school year, a lot of their leases start at that point of the year, in September. We're bringing in a little less on our water tower rent as well. I also think that is a little bit because those folks the different companies that have lease on our water tower are also selling less cell phone subscriptions. So not anything to be terribly concerned about, but things that we're monitoring and watching. In terms of expenditures, we're about 35% overall for our general fund in terms of expenditures, so a very good place to be at halfway through the year. There are a couple of large items that haven't happened yet that happened during the second half of the year that contribute to that, like our big transfer that we make out of general from sewer operating into sewer capital. Pension payments, that's going to be a big hit that we'll have in the third quarter. When we pay our bond payment in the fourth quarter, that's another big one. So we're looking at still about 1.2 million of expenditures expected to hit at the second part of the year just out of those big items. But for the most part, most departments are operating well within what we expected for budget-wise. A few of the accounts are a little bit above what we want to be at halfway, and some of these are things that we unfortunately just couldn't anticipate. Like we didn't expect that one of the furnaces on the police side and one of the air conditioners on the admin side were going to die this year. So we've had to pay for those this year. We didn't expect to have to do that. There's a couple of different timing things that we're working on where just because of when invoices hit for some of our larger software type items, it's showing up as in this year's budget, even though it was really a last year expense. Gas prices are rising, so that's a little bit higher than we had anticipated for this point of the year. Postage went up a lot. And because we have to send a lot certified, we end up spending a lot when it comes to postage, so that's up. A couple other different items within different departments, but overall, things that just are sort of how the world is going right now and how we sort of have to adapt to that. But for the most part, the things that are over budget are generally smaller portions of the budget. The big things, insurance, pension, debt, all that stuff, those are things we have anticipated for. We're ready for them when it's that time. So general fund doing very well. I'll talk just then briefly about our two enterprise funds, the sewer fund and the solid waste fund. Both are doing very well at this point of the year. We've collected about 52% of sewer funds for this year, which is what we would want to be at, which means people are paying their sewer bill, which is good. We've got about 40% of what we expected to spend at this point in expenditures for sewer. So again, doing very well. And for solid waste, we're at about 40% or 45% of what we expect to bring in on revenue for solid waste. And we're slightly above or below the midpoint for expenditures on solid waste. So overall, for where we are at this point of the year, we're doing well. We'll be cautiously optimistic. This is very important as we head into budget, and we're starting to put numbers in. It helps us feel good, but also we don't want to have a false sense of security because, unfortunately, I think some of these things that are rising we're going to see that continue, and so we're going to see that, and we're going to try to plan for that in this year's budget. And we're definitely going to be looking at some significant capital purchases in the next couple of years. So you'll see that with the CIP budget. So in a good place, generally happy with where we are right now as we head into budget. Any questions about that?
Thank you for the overview and for just providing a midpoint. I mean, I remember it wasn't that long ago. We had no borough manager and no financial officer and no budget planning. So it's just really great to know that we have you and your team looking at this and keeping a close eye on it, and that we're in good shape. It's wonderful for the borough, so thank you and everyone for their efforts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if it is okay with council, because we're discussing budget and I provided you the statement of revenue and expenditure tonight and the check register, if council would like, you can go ahead and approve the finance report for June at this meeting. You would normally do that at the second meeting, but it felt probably appropriate to do that since I provided all the documentation that you would normally see for that vote anyway.
I'll make a motion to accept the June financial report and authorize the staff to satisfy the ordinary and routine obligations incurred by the borough for this month.
Second.
Discussion? All right, thank you, Joe and Greg. All those in favor of accepting the June financial report and authorizing staff to satisfy the ordinary and routine obligations incurred by the borough for this month, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, we're great. Thank you, Rebecca. The mayor's report.
Yes, okay. Yeah, this afternoon, by invitation, as me being the mayor, I attended the ribbon-cutting celebration for the opening of the new Catherine Hershey School that's located at Long Lane across the road from the Cherry Hill Orchards. This is the old Mennonite school that's been converted. And the reason why I attended, because Millersville is in the district that's going to be covered by this new Danville school. So they provide weekday childcare and play-based learning for children aged 6 weeks to age 5. The cost is going to be covered for qualified families, so it's going to be no cost to families. Okay, the new Danville school is number 4 out of the 6 that they were planning, and this is the first school in Lancaster County that's going to be going on. So the school will be serving about 100 children, and it's going to start tomorrow, as a matter of fact. So Catherine was the wife of Milton, who founded the Hershey chocolate empire. So, and on another note, I met with the police chief to review applications from 2 of our police officers regarding the Career Longevity Development Program. This program, which is part of the police union contract, provides an opportunity for the officers to earn extra monetary bonus if they meet specified criteria. So I'll let the police chief explain a little bit about the program.
Sure. So it's unique. It's not something you'll find very much in Pennsylvania, and that's because the previous chief came from out of state. And Chief Mitchner's here, he'll even agree with me that our career development plan, we've gotten a lot of questions about just because it was so unique of an idea, and the previous chief didn't invent it. I just think different states do things differently. They're not unionized, they do different things the way their police departments are run. But basically, if you concentrate on what it's called, Career Development Program, it's very beneficial and it's unique in that it provides patrol officers only, not supervisors or administrators, the ability in a smaller department where you may only have a few positions for advancement, maybe like us, you only have 2 supervisors and 2 detective positions and then 1 admin with a lieutenant. So if you've got 7 patrolmen sitting down there, these other positions may not be available for years. This provides an opportunity where they can voluntarily hold themselves at higher standards. It's incentive to have a better, make sure there's no disciplinary records, no vehicle accidents. They can have additional education level if they pursue an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree. These are all components that are reviewed that have to be met for each step of the monetary reward that they get. And there's 3 levels based on the total number of years you've been with the department. You can't even get first class until you've had, and I won't remember these exactly without having the papers in front of me, but 7 years, 12 years, 15 years, that's broken down. And basically, it gives them an opportunity to hold themselves voluntarily to these higher standards each year and show that they meet them, including their shooting skills, their physical fitness. They go through the physical fitness whole testing again, like as if it was the day they started here, which you don't have to do any of that. You could just continue to be a patrol officer and be happy and be done. But so it is very unique. And since we've advertised it with all the hiring we've been done, I've gotten calls from police chiefs all across the tri-county, if not further areas, say, what is this? And I've sent them what we have here. So it provides a very good opportunity to incentivize those officers who are sitting in those patrol positions to voluntarily improve themselves, even though they can't move to a promotion to another position. And it's $1,250 at the first level, $1,750 at the middle, and $2,500 at career, which is almost as much as a detective could make. So you can see how that's an incentive. And then when that position eventually would come open, look, you can see how they've improved themselves and they're an obvious fit and probably going to apply for one of those promotion positions. And then once you're promoted, you're not eligible. The promoted people are not eligible for that career development program. So it's very unique. And it's been very good for us. We've probably had it, I'm guessing, 20 plus years now. And a handful of officers have participated. I used to participate way back in the day, and those who are interested, that they say have high growth needs, want to move and want more challenges, they participate. So it's good. It's worked out very well for us. The officers really like it.
That's great.
Thank you,
I
Chief.
didn't know about that program.
So that's all I have.
Thank you. We have a few items from the manager.
All right. Although the first one is very good news, I wanted to give a quick update on our Valley Road Stormwater Project. We did hit substantial completion with this project. The pay application was submitted. We are significantly under budget. We actually had budgeted 200,000 for this project, and in total we'll be spending just about 90,000. So significant savings. A lot of that is due to the fact that some of the additional parts of the project that we thought were going to be needed to be done, especially concerning the water line there, the city of Lancaster water line there, we thought might need to be paid to be moved. It did not. So because of some other utility things, we were able to really keep this a very manageable project. And Kyle got to see it kind of in action the night of the very large rainstorm. Was literally, 4 days after the project had finished. So he went and saw the water actually going through the pipe properly. You know, it was full of water. It was a 36-inch pipe? 36-inch pipe full of water. So the timing could not have been better, because that water otherwise would have been probably into the street, into people's yards. So project very well done. We're holding a little bit of the escrow of the actual amount for the project, just while the restoration finishes, the grass grows and all that stuff. But we're very, very pleased about that project. Any questions about that?
Excellent. No,
None.
Yeah.
it's great.
I give Kyle a hard time because he didn't get a video of the pipe with all the water coming out, but he didn't want to lose his phone in the rain.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So that's that. So the other thing is an ask this evening, something that we don't normally like to do outside of the budget cycle, but something that we felt cost savings was going to be significant enough to the borough that we did want to bring it forward in this year. It's something that we'd be planning for next year. I do have Kyle here to answer any more specific questions about it, but just the bigger overview. The dump truck in the street department, the international dump truck year
2011.
Thank you, 2011, is essentially at the end of its life. It's a truck that gets used a good amount. With some shopping around, Kyle looking at different options, and learning about some additional regulation change that's going to drive up the cost of the dump trucks for next year. We are looking at an option of being able to put in a sales order this year for a 2026 dump truck versus putting in for a 2027 next year. That would hopefully save us about $66,000. This would be mostly paid out of our liquid fuels account, possibly split with capital, but if we can keep the price down, we could pay for it with our liquid fuels funds that we get from the state. In stock rate, I should say, one of the other components of it is that we would be using components on our current dump truck that would be taken off and put onto the new one versus doing a new upfit. So we'd be repurposing some of the equipment on the dump truck to be able to put it onto the new one to also keep costs down. So between doing a this year sales order, it would still be paid out of next year because it wouldn't arrive until next year, but doing a sales order this year, and being able to do reusing the old components is where we get that 66,000 savings, versus doing a purchase next year, and doing a full new upfit and getting a 2027 vehicle. So again, we're asking council this evening to make a budget decision pre-budget. It would be put into the budget, it would be paid next year, but we are asking for the ability to at least sign a sales order this year to prepare for next year. It would also mean that we would be taking 1 year off from paving next year. Good news is, and Carol can attest, that we're in a very good place on paving right now. We've kept up with the paving schedule. The roads that we were looking at for next year are smaller ones that are doing okay. We would simply pick up the schedule the year after, and then have the new equipment to be able to do that new paving well. So, Carol, did I miss anything?
I think you covered it.
What's the condition of our truck currently?
So the biggest reason of getting rid of the truck, the last 3 years, well, Andy did a year of it, and every year for the last 3 years in inspection, I think we put close to $20,000 into the truck. What I'm told, we didn't know this obviously when we bought that truck, but that was a year where they were trying to change a lot of emission stuff. And it was a failure, basically. So we've had so many issues just here and there, and it's one of those, if we're in the middle of a snowstorm and it breaks down, we're gonna be trying to find people to help, and that's not usually a very easy thing to do for Salton. And
All you probably would have had to say was 2011. That's it.
yeah, and it's, like I said, yeah, it's,
So my understanding is the truck is at least basically functional, but there's a significant outlay year over year to
Yes.
get it to pass inspection. And then what is the reason then that we would have to take a year off of paving?
because of the price of the truck, it'll take the liquid fuels down a little too far that I mean,
I see. So it's a
Yeah.
budgetary, not a,
it's a choice that I need to, it's either the truck or paving. So,
and the truck is the priority certainly for longevity. And then what's the total outlay for the 2026 truck that we're considering? Do we know?
The truck itself, 137,000, and then by using the old components, the upfit on it would just be about 83.5, versus if we did a full new upfit, it'd be 120,000.
Was this an anticipated cost in prior budgets? I seem to remember a discussion around this.
kind of happening quicker than.
Yeah.
It's just happening faster, but
Anticipated.
this was anticipated
This was on
for the
CIP
27.
last year, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We were hoping that it was gonna hold off until 2028, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
Well, I'm certain it would-ish, but if we can save 66 on.
Well, that's, and also, so with using some of the old stuff, so the bed on the truck is good. It's aluminum bed, it's fine, everything works fine. We're gonna switch the bed over. The snow plow is okay, so we're gonna switch that over. The only thing new that I will be getting is a salt spreader. Obviously, because that sees salt and corrosion all the time.
Yep.
And then the new truck would come with like a new hydraulic system. Just
Yeah,
might as well update that while but yeah. So that's just a little breakdown of what the $83,000 is. That's moving the old bed over, putting the plow on, getting the whole truck ready to go.
and preventing future outlay on inspection passage and
Yeah.
those kinds of things, yeah. No, that covers me.
Will the old truck then be sold?
Yes, and that will go back into liquid fuels money because
Yeah.
it was paid for out of liquid fuels, so that money has to go back into liquid.
Yep.
But we're doing pretty well on municipal these.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we're waiting on municipal bid on our own trucks and
Yeah, so-
our beds.
So it'll go right back into
Well-
liquid fuels and then help for the next year's paving.
Great.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the sales order for a 2026 Peterbilt truck for budgeting and payment in 2027.
Seconded.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike and Joe. Any further discussion? I mean, it's definitely better to save some money if it's going to be an inevitable expense, so thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the execution of a sales order for a 2026 Peterbilt dump truck for budgeting and payment in 2027 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That sounded like an aye, okay.
Ish.
All right, great.
Thank you. We appreciate that. We don't come with these things lightly. So
I
we
really
appreciate
didn't want to bring it, but I felt that it was a chance to save that kind of money. I was
Absolutely.
hoping you'd be on board with it.
And we don't need to get the old one inspected again.
All right, the president's report. I have a few things. First, I wanted to thank Penn Manor High School for their use of their facility last week for the meeting. I did not get a chance to do that during the hearing, so I
Hear,
want to
hear.
make sure that we thank them for being a good partner and helping us with the extra space. It was really valuable to be able to have everyone in the room who wanted to be in the room. Next, I wanted to remind everyone about the August 4th National Night Out held in our parking lot. It's an opportunity to meet our local law enforcement, ask questions. The borough will have a table, correct? Yep. I will be at the table, so if anyone wants to talk to me, has questions, and I would invite any other council members to join that night and meet any residents who want to converse. The rain date is the next night, August 5th, correct? Right.
Good to have a rain date.
Yep, yep. And then lastly, I don't believe we have anything on the agenda for our next meeting, the 28th, and it seems like a good time to give everyone a break. So I will make a motion to formally cancel the July 28th, 2026 council meeting.
Seconded.
Thanks, Joe. Any comments on that?
We have no voting items for that meeting and nothing of pressing concern for discussion.
Not at this point.
It's supposed to be a voting meeting. If we don't have anything to vote on, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, we can always vote at the early August meeting if there was something that was critical. All right, all those in favor of canceling the July 28th, 2026 meeting signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, great. That is all from me. We do have the opportunity for an additional round of public comment, if anyone would like to address council at this time. All right, do we have an executive session this evening? All right, then I would make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All right, it is 7:42. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Mike.